Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Remain Indoors podcast. I'm your host, Richard Spanners. Ready today. We're going to be talking hot takes and hot cakes. We're going to be joined by a very special guest at the end of the show. It is none other than the Amanda Weaver. That's right. A. Weaver Wrights, a.k.a. Mrs. Trumpets, is going to be joining us on the line. And so let's hope my co-host, Matt Trumpets, is ready for that. How's it going, Matt?
It's going fine. We've been playing human Jenga to try and get her into the studio.
To shuffle in. There's not that much room.
Yeah, our shed is way smaller than your shed, I should say.
I did try to get Mrs. Spanners to join us, and she rejected the kind offer, but has a lot of input on what we're going to be talking about with your wife, which is copyright law, and how long artists can retain the right to their work. Fascinating stuff coming up, but to build an appetite for that, we're joined by BBC journalist and newsreader Sarah Very. Hello, Sarah.
Hi. Seamless, that was.
I know, not bad. I should do this kind of thing more, shouldn't I? Presenting in that.
Yeah, you should. Yeah.
So Sarah gets to see the very unprofessional side of me behind the scenes at BBC Radio Cambridgeshire, where I'm always calm between takes. You never see me panicking or being flustered.
No, never.
One more time with feeling.
No, never.
But you are also somewhat of a master chef. Where do you rank your skills? Because everybody at the studio is like, cooking equals Sarah Very.
Well, I suppose it's just something I've always done. Since I went to secondary school, I took up cooking. So that was more than 50 years ago, put it that way.
50, that's so many years, yeah. Sarah.
I know, just before they invented the petrol engine, I think it was, actually. But I just love it. It's great. It's been locked down. It's kept me going. It's given me something to think about. And one of the things I have thought about, because you said to me, what are we going to talk about today? And what have I been doing? And I kept thinking, everybody's wittering on about making bread. And I used to make bread. And then I went off the idea and thought, oh, I don't know, I can't be bothered and whatever. And then I thought, well, I've got the time. And once you could get flour without having to, sell your mother for it, I thought I'll have a go at it. And I've not only made bread, but I've also been making other yeast things, such as cakes.
Ah, okay. So we're going to do a very doughy episode, if you like, a bread-based episode.
Get our fingers stuck in.
Because that's what you need, isn't it, Trumpets? You need more sticky treats, given that your daughter is just absolutely smashing out the park with desserts at the moment.
Yeah, the daughter is 100% trying to kill us both for the entire tens of dollars that will be left her when we are no longer on the planet.
You think that's her long-term goal? Is like, should we check your cholesterol, Dad? Let's check it's going the right way.
Yeah, no, she really does like to bake, and she's gotten rather good at it. The next thing up we're trying to get her to make is a babka, but she doesn't. The yeast bread takes a little bit longer, so she's been sticking to non-yeast stuff for the time being.
All right.
How old is she?
She's 16, going on 17.
Good time to start.
See, this is the thing. My little 9-year-old just turned to me and said, "Daddy, I really want to be able to cook meals. Can you teach me to cook?" I looked at her and I was like, "No, you're asking entirely the wrong parent." But as far as she's concerned, 3 days a week, Daddy cooks dinner because Mum's in the shed working. But what she misses is the fact that the wife has gone out of her way to make sure I'm all right. When she goes in there, she will prepare a slow cooked meal to a beef bourguignon or a beef stew or something. And all Dum here has to do is get the rice ready. But of course, I deliver the meal. So my children think, oh, well, Daddy does a lot of cooking as well. I really don't. I cook rice. That's all I do.
It's time. Well, the correct answer should be, no, I can't teach you, but let's learn together.
It should be. And that's why I brought you on here. Honestly, when I asked my wife, I said, have you got any questions for Sarah? And her very first sentence out of her mouth was, well, given that I do everything all the time, yes, I have got some questions for Sarah. She would like to ask you about equipment, about cooking equipment, because we are so bad at, we just keep the same pots, and then if we need a new frying pan, we'll just get the cheapest one from Tesco's. So this is what I was going to ask. Are you a tech person when it comes to cooking tech? She was looking at, and I'm trying to find the Le Creuset
Le Creuset.
I think
It's French.
we just said the same thing, so I don't know why you repeated exactly what I said.
Le Crouton.
But but I was looking at
Don't
like
get an American involved in this.
racist. I was looking at some of their casserole pots, and for example, like I've never bought a casserole pot. I assumed they were a tenner. For a cast iron round casserole, it starts at 170 quid for this famous brand, and then ends at like 400-500 quid. And you go, wow, is there any way that a £400 casserole pot is actually going to make better food?
The cost is not the important thing. The important element is the weight of the metal that you're using. And there are much cheaper versions available than Le Creuset. Le Creuset is lovely. It's a a popular brand, but it's very, very expensive. If you're careful with it and you don't chip the enamel, it will last you, well, it will last your children and your children's children. It will virtually, unless the only thing that will damage it is if you actually drop it on concrete, and then you might crack it. But apart from that, and the thing is that it's iron, and iron absorbs the heat very well, and it spreads it very evenly.
Right.
If you buy, and it's particularly important with things like casseroles and frying pans. Frying pans, if you buy a cheap frying pan, you've probably noticed that they start to buckle after a bit. They don't sit flat on the stove anymore, right? That's not good, okay? Because you need the heat evenly spread.
Yeah.
So actually, my favorite ones now are actually American brand, I think, and they are just cast iron. They're not enameled, and you don't have to do anything. You never put them in the dishwasher because they go rusty. You just wipe them out. You don't need. They never stick. They're absolutely fantastic. They cook beautifully.
Are you saying you can't put them in the dishwasher, or you don't need to?
Correct.
You can't.
You shouldn't put them in the dishwasher. My husband used to, and we used to have stand-up rows about it because they go rusty. Right? I mean, you can get rid of it. You just wipe them around with oil, but you don't need to put them in the dishwasher because they barely even need washing when you finish with them. They're amazing.
Yeah,
and the same applies. Sorry.
I was going to say, and the more you cook with them, the more they sort of bake on a no-stick finish, and the easier they get to clean.
Yeah, because the fat actually seals the iron. And the same applies to casserole dishes. If you're going to have one that goes from the top of the stove into the oven, it's got to be metal, because the ceramic ones won't put it up with that. There are some glass ones made by Pyrex, the name of which I've forgotten, which will do both, but I don't think they're wonderful. But a good cast iron casserole, not cast aluminium if you've got an induction hob, because it doesn't work.
Right.
But cast iron will stand you in good stead. It will cook. You can cook really slowly on it as well. Everything gets hot at the same time. They are definitely an investment, but they don't have to cost you £400.
And that costs the same as a sim racing rig, though, Matt. That's about the same price.
Yeah, I know. Choices. Eating or sim racing?
All right. So,
well, if you don't do one, you can't do the other.
If Nicola doesn't voluntarily tune into this episode, I'm just going to say, I'm going to say that Sarah said it doesn't matter. Cheap ones are just as good as the really good ones. So I'm just going to lie, and then hopefully.
Well, I did say the cheap ones are just as good, but not the thin ones.
With you, okay.
It's I mean, Aldi. If Aldi does a cast iron casserole, it'll be fine.
Okay, good. And also we have so I think this will please her because she wants to invest in like better stuff, and I think it's kind of grown up to have something that you go, we've had this for 10 years and you will have it as well. And I think she kind of likes that kind of grown up cooking instead of what we do, which is basically we have survival kitchen. You know, we've survived. I'm pretty sure I've still got some of the cutlery that I just sneaked into my parents' house and I just took some of their cutlery because I didn't have any cutlery. I'm pretty sure I still have that cutlery in our cutlery drawer. So that's kind of been our attitude.
I go through my kids' cutlery drawers and go, oh, I remember that set. but just think, if you buy good stuff, you're probably saving the planet. And if you look at how many cheap saucepans and frying pans you've bought over the years, it adds up to one decent one that won't do it. And the other thing is, if you're buying new pans, don't buy non-stick, buy stainless steel ones.
Roger that. Are you a fan of slow cooking? like in general, because I bought her a £12 slow cooker from Tesco's, almost like as a joke at Christmas, and actually she's loved that. And for the last 5 years, we've had really good slow cooked stuff. It's kind of changed the way we've approached our dinners.
When I got married in 1976, it was on everybody's wedding list.
Was
Everybody wanted a slow cooker, right? And then they went right out of fashion because that was before microwaves, right? And before lots of women went to work as well. But the slow cooker was the thing, and everybody had one. I broke mine many years down the road, and I didn't replace it for years. And then suddenly they came back. People went, I actually really like, and the fact that a lot of them now they're one pot, so you don't have to prepare the food, fry it first, and then put it in the slow cooker.
Yeah, everything goes in
both jobs.
raw. Yeah,
precisely. And for a family, and particularly when you're working, I think they're a fantastic idea. Yeah.
So she keeps saying to me, it's so easy, even you could do it, but I haven't actually attempted a slow cooker meal yet.
Well, all you have to do is cut everything up and put it in the thing and turn it on.
Yeah,
and even you can probably do that.
Well, now don't get ahead of yourself.
Hey, I'm definitely going to have to give that. I'm definitely going to have to give it a go. But the
But
question.
follow a recipe first.
Follow a recipe.
It comes back to that thing. Follow some recipes.
Yeah.
Okay, and then when you're confident and you do know what you're doing, then you can adapt them a bit. But just getting some recipes off the internet or something is fine.
Why haven't you got a cookbook or a cooking blog or something?
Me?
Yeah.
You mean why haven't I written one?
Yeah, you're quite you can do the writing. You speak in sentences.
I have thought about it. I'm not quite sure. You need to find somewhere to pitch it that nobody else has done. So
Yeah.
I dabble in lots of different cultures, and I haven't quite worked out. When I give up broadcasting, I'm probably going to move into that and make my fortune.
Tell you what, we'll pitch it to Channel 4, where I ask what I think are seemingly fine questions about cooking, and you answer them aggressively with contempt. That seems like something that would work. We could give that a
go. Are you trying to tell me something?
No, not at all. Not at all. Listen, serious question about the slow cooker.
Yes.
Something we haven't done yet is put like a whole joint or like a whole chicken in there. Is that a thing that can be done?
Absolutely, it can.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that'll work. It'll cook through and.
Yes, I mean you have to remember that it's going to be wet cooking. Okay, so it's going to be softer, but it will be absolutely delicious because all the flavors stay inside the pot. And you can put lots of onions and garlic and vegetables, a bit of wine if you want to, and just let it cook slowly. And in fact, meat on the whole prefers to be cooked slowly. And it's a very old-fashioned way of cooking.
Yeah, but in a way, by the time you get to the dinner, it feels like such low effort. Obviously, there's effort going into it, but by the time you just go, oh, okay, and also the timing stresses me out in cooking. Whereas with the slow cooker, it's just ready sometime in the evening. So whenever you want to get to it, it's done, and it's just 10 minutes to put your rice
and that depends on how big the pieces are, evidently. So if you put a whole chicken in, that's going to take 6 or 7 hours, possibly.
Sure.
Yeah. Whereas if you've just put small pieces of meat in, they'll be cooked a lot quicker. But it doesn't matter because you can just leave it quietly bubbling away, and it'll be fine.
Well, with both of us working, we tend to I say a very loose we. The slow cooking gets prepared in the morning, before we start our working day, and it's kind of there towards the end of the day. So that shouldn't be an issue. One thing I'm curious about, we will get to your sourdough, I promise, and I am very conscious that you have a singing lesson to attend. I do. Very exciting. Is that Matt keeps going on about an air fryer, and so I was talking to my wife about that. Matt, what do you love about the air fryer?
Well, it's not just an air fryer. It's also a pressure cooker.
Oh, right. Okay.
So it will pressure cook. Now, we have had for a long time a slow cooker, and we loved our slow cooker. But bullying my wife for Christmas present thoughts, she said, well, I've looked at these pressure cooker things that you keep on, this technology that you keep on trying to foist on me, and I've picked one out. So I got it for her. And wow, is it a thing to pressure cook as opposed to slow cook? Because it's like all the goodness of slow cooking, but in like 15 minutes.
Really, Sarah? Are we approving this? This sounds like a weird like microwave type situation.
Well, before microwaves, we had pressure cookers.
Oh, okay.
And the problem with the old pressure cookers, and again, mine had a bit of an accident, was that if you forgot them, they exploded and the lid would shoot off. Dramatic, and dinner usually went with it, unfortunately.
That does
because it
sound
was
like a
eventually
downside, if I'm honest.
Yeah, well, I think the modern ones are much safer than that. I think there's technology to stop it doing that, and it probably turns itself off when it's ready. I don't know. I haven't got one anymore. But you can get ones that you put in the microwave. I was looking at one the other day. So it's from the sublime to the ridiculous. And microwaves sort of replace the pressure cooker.
Matt, any explosions so far in your house?
No, they have the equivalent of like a pop-off valve and a turbocharged engine. So they don't do that anymore, and they shut themselves down if they
Yeah.
sense anything, including like just burning at the bottom of the pot going on. They'll just cut themselves right off, which can cause some issues if recipes haven't properly been adapted for the thing. But on the whole, it's remarkable, and because it's an air fryer, you can do things like fried chicken, and do what do you call them? Chips over there.
Chips,
You can
yeah.
do things like
Chips, you mean fries?
and chicken
Yeah.
wings and that sort of thing. So it's a neat little gadget, and we
Okay.
very much enjoyed having it. And we're still really just learning how to use it.
All right, look, you had me at deep fried chicken because like I am like KFC. Other chicken brands are available, but they're rubbish. But KFC is my absolute favorite. Like when they say, "What do you want to do for your birthday, Dad?" I'm like, I'm go to KFC and just eat KFC food. And they're like, "No, that's not a birthday thing." I'm like, "Well, it is because you all moan whenever I want to go there and I never get to." Sorry, Matt, I interrupted you.
Well, I wanted to be clear. They will not deep fry chicken. They're actually like little convection ovens, but
Okay.
they will give a crispy fried texture on the outside without using any oil at all.
Okay. This sounds too good to be true. And how much am I going to spend on my air fryer?
They're not very
It depends.
expensive.
They're not.
No, a friend of mine's got one. I mean, I think they're about £50, something like that, probably.
50 quid. That's a
$47.
new steering wheel cover for the sim. Oh, sorry. All monetary
Yeah, but
value.
it won't do you KFC.
Yeah, that's true.
Goes
Yeah.
back to investment.
Do like some fried chicken. Do like me some
You
fried
can knit
chicken.
a steering wheel cover.
I'm getting really hungry. This always happens to me. Right, I'm getting really hungry. Before you go, we've got to get to your. Is it sourdough?
Well, bread. We were talking bread in general. But
Okay.
we can talk sourdough.
Okay. Well, I don't even know what I'm talking about. What is the difference?
So sourdough uses natural yeast that you find in the air. That's the origin of risen bread. Before we had what we now call baker's yeast.
There's yeast in the air,
which is manufactured and is cultured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything is covered in fungus, pretty much. Okay. And yeast is a fungus.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm covered in
absolutely.
fungus.
Everybody is.
Okay.
We can't survive without it.
Okay.
There's a fascinating book out about that, but that's another subject. So that's what it is. And one way, you have to make what they call a starter. Yeah. And what you do, my way of doing it, is that you get some grapes, ordinary grapes, just go and buy them from a shop.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't wash them. That's very important. Do not wash them.
Okay, because we want the fungus.
Correct. And grapes have a sort of silvery grey look to them, don't they, on the outside?
Sure.
More obvious on red ones. And it doesn't matter which colour they are. Well, that's the fungus. That's the bloom, as they call it. And if you put that in a jar with some water, just tap water, and some flour, and you leave it for about 3 or 4 days with a lid over it or a cloth or something. And after 3 or 4 days, you should start to see that it's beginning to bubble round the grapes.
Okay, and that's
it's like making wine.
So
same idea.
So we're farming that
You're
bubble.
fermenting. Yeah, you're fermenting. You're getting it, and the fungus is feeding on the flour.
Oh, okay. And so we're using that to make it to rise instead of. And what's the
Well,
advantage?
it creates something that has bubbles in it that will make the bread rise. The bread rises because you've got carbon dioxide bubbles.
And does the sour come from the fruit?
Because it tastes sour. You can smell it. When you take the lid off, it smells slightly beery usually.
Oh, so and the bread will end up tasting different as well.
Yes, it's got a slightly acidic taste to it.
Okay, so but we have not baked bread before. Is that something? Can I do it? Is it easy?
Um, it's harder than using commercial yeast
Right.
because you've got to know what you're looking for. I mean, it's taken me a long while. I think I finally cracked it, but it does take time, and it's much slower as well. It'll take all day to rise or all night. But the good news is, if it, like me, you think, oh yeah, that's nearly ready, and then you go to bed and forget it, and it's gone over the top, you just bash it down and you let
Okay.
it come up again. Whereas you can't do that with commercial yeast.
And also with a thing like that, it's more than just a food. It's a talking point. Like I know you're a very social person, and I'm sure you're already planning marvelous soirees. I've already
Oh,
got
too right.
now that we're best podcasting friends, I've got my tuxedo all ready for my invite. I'll just
Good-o.
wait patiently by the front door. It's also a talking piece, isn't it, for your guests to go, oh look, taste that, taste the sour, and here's the fungus that I farmed. You can go, everyone, look
Yeah,
at
I
my
mean,
fungus.
you can share it. So I'll happily share my sourdough starter with you, because you have to keep refreshing it. You make bread with it and then you top it up. But if you're not making bread with it, you still have to keep topping it up, because it needs fresh flour and the sugar in the flour to keep eating it.
Well,
It keeps it active.
I think I'm sorry, I can't visualize it. I'm going to need a sample next time we're in studio together.
I
Sorry
will
about that.
bring a sample with me and give you instructions.
Hooray! Right, we don't want to make you late for your singing lesson, Sarah, but I hope you'll come and join us in a couple of months and
I'd
talk
love
some
to.
cooking with us, and maybe we can do a live stream to one of your famous dinner parties.
I look forward to it. You're
So
on the top of the guest list.
fantastic. She said it on a podcast. She's got to do it now. We are going to rudely hang up on you, Sarah, but enjoy your singing lesson, and we hope we'll see you
Thank
again
you.
soon.
Bye all.
Bye all. Well, there you go, Matt. I am absolutely starving now. Like, I am critical levels of hungry, quite frankly. And I don't know. I might have to go and take a break and go and get myself a sandwich.
Yeah, we even had a lard bread from Caputo's, and I had a slice for breakfast, and I am now hungry again just listening to that description of sourdough.
Yeah, this happens to me all the time. Like on the BBC, I've got a show from 10 till 12, and inevitably with gardening, everyone starts talking about recipes for all the food that they've grown in their yard, and by 12 o'clock, I'm like, my stomach's properly on the grumble.
Yeah, mine is thankfully I have the noise gate working, because otherwise you'd be hearing mine about every 10 seconds right now.
So, whilst you go and grab your special guest, I shall address the schedule, the gathered throngs. That's a slight exaggeration, isn't it? But I do have an opportunity to talk to you guys. Firstly, I want to say, thank you for being part of this community. Given that we have no real new, fresh source of listeners, and it's basically the same guys who've been listening from the beginning that are now still listening and tuning in and being part of this community nearly a year later, we've barely dropped off. In fact, the live stream might have dropped off a little bit, but the podcast figures have been going up steadily. It's never going to grow, this project, because this is really, in reality, an extension of what we've been doing over at Missed Apex podcast. And it's been wonderful to have the opportunity to kind of show you guys what me and Matt are like away from Missed Apex. So away from like a really strict kind of schedule of show notes. What are we like when we're talking about bicycles? What are we like when we're talking about hoverboards and things like that? So it's been really valuable in that sense. But from a freelance position, it's always been slightly vulnerable to other pressures. So, without messing around anymore, those other pressures do mean that I need to park Spanners 90s Radio and Remain Indoors podcast just until the end of April. So we've got a calendar date in for the first show back after hiatus. I'm really proud that we've kept it going mostly all year, especially during the lockdowns. I've had loads of really lovely messages about how it's kept people sane, or people have said, oh, it's been a nice distraction or whatever, or how much they've enjoyed the community. Believe it or not, we've had that as well. And this has had a really important place in my calendar. I could bore you with why I'm putting it on a hiatus. It's nothing to do with this show. It is more to do with that everything is now being directed at Missed Apex podcast. So we're really pushing hard with with our media and with our advertising to really hit the season hard and properly with an air of professionalism, with a little bit of cash thrown at it as well. And we want to keep that up deep into the season as well, which is why I'm looking at the end of April. So, I suddenly realized with Missed Apex, we really needed a social media manager. We've needed one for a long time, but we've just been fumbling by. So I've just gone and studied social media and sat there and done my best, and I've got to be that guy, and that takes time. So Remain Indoors, the 3 hours on a Thursday that takes me, that is now going to be in promo. And as part of that, I've got to learn to be a video editor. We need another video editor. We need another graphics designer. So I've been teaching myself those skills, and we're going to try and apply them now to really making Missed Apex a thing. Also, we're moving house. We've got people coming to see the house. We're looking for houses, and then we're going to have to move as well. And then the final kind of hit on the head that said, you're killing yourself, you've got to cut down on the schedule, is the fact that the iRacing podcast is doing pretty well. The numbers have gone up, and that probably deserves some attention too. So I will see you guys back here at the end of April. We're going to put a date in the calendar. But our very last guest of this run is a special one. It's a lady that you hear about all the time. It's Mrs. Trumpets. Hello, Amanda.
Hello.
Hello. You don't go by Mrs. Trumpets generally, though, do you?
Do not go by Mrs. Trumpets.
You don't say, here, buy my book. I'm Amanda Trumpets, and read my book.
Buy my book. I'm Amanda Weaver. I wrote all these books.
I hope, even though I spend a lot of time distracting your husband and keeping locked away in the study and made him obsessed with iRacing, I've at least pushed your books. I don't think a week goes by where we don't say, buy Amanda Weaver's mucky books.
I appreciate it. We need all the help out here we can get, us struggling authors.
Now, the reason I suggested to Matt that we get you on was, we're talking about struggling authors. And by the way, the picture is absolutely darling of you two squeezed in to the study trying to stay in shot, is because you were passionately, emotionally speaking on Twitter at A Weaver Writes about some call to make copyright for creative works shorter. And I believe the figure was 30 years. So
that was what one person's very bad take was. 30 years is plenty of time for an author to make money off of their book. And then it should just go into the public sphere because everyone else wants to have access to it.
Well, why don't you give me a bit of a background of what kicked off? I'm going to call it a rant because it was. What kicked off the Twitter rants?
This guy, Matty Iglesias, who Matt and I used to follow for politics years ago, he's come out with a few questionable takes on various subjects in the recent past. And then he just sort of, I don't know what brought it on, why he suddenly thought he needed to weigh in on the length of copyright law, but he decided that 30 years should be enough for anybody to earn money off of not just books, like creative music and movies and, all those things. It should all just go into the public sphere after 30 years so that everybody else could have a shot at it. And it wasn't just me having a rant. Every single author I knew online was having the same rant. Always my question is, why is creative property considered different than physical property? Like, why should I have to give up the rights to my book while it's still in my lifetime? That doesn't make any sense to me. But what surprised me was the number of people weighing in on this subject who also thought it was some sort of, I saw one person call us intellectual landlords because we chose to we unfairly kept a stranglehold on our own work. So there were a lot of really bad takes out there on the internet about the unfairness of authors insisting on owning their own copyright.
So what is the law right now? Where does it stand? You write your book, Matt Trumpet's fan fiction about a podcast producer in New York. How long do you
You weren't supposed to say that to her. Come on, man. You're going to get me in trouble here.
How long do you own that work for?
It currently under U.S. law, it's the length of my life plus 75 years, I believe.
So it's you and your children, nearly.
Yes. Basically, it's like you and the next generation gets to own your rights to your work.
So what is the argument to say that you shouldn't own that work and you shouldn't own the rights to it? Like, what possible argument is there?
Well, this was always my question too, and I waded into a few threads, reading the conversations, trying to understand what they were after, and I kept seeing references to the benefit to the public in letting these works become public, and they implied somehow that authors are hoarding their works away from the world and not letting people have access to it. First of all, you can go buy my book anywhere you want.
You
if
can
you want
hold
to
it
read
up
it,
to the
you can
camera.
buy it.
It's funny.
And if you don't want to pay for it, you can hold this one up because it's on sale right now.
What's the title?
And if you don't want to pay for it, it's in the library. You can check it out. Like this idea that authors are somehow keeping their works from the world is false. But then this is the funny part, and where I finally had to just laugh and walk away from the whole conversation. Dig a little deeper, and you always find some guy who's really pissed off that he didn't get to write Star Wars, and he's mad that they let girls be Jedis. And if only Star Wars didn't control the copyright, he could have written a better Star Wars movie. And that's what it all comes down to in the end.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's a bit of jealousy over that work. I'm taking it. The guy who is. I'm assuming it's a guy as well. Is pushing for
Always a
this.
guy.
Is not an author. It's just men, isn't it? Like even I'm pissed off with men right now. And your problem of artists are hoarding it away from the world. I have never met a writer who hasn't instantly and at length told me about what they're
Shoved
writing.
our work in your face.
Okay, I'm trying to think of a counter argument then. For example, we're talking about like a big film company who wants to make a film out of your latest book called
The last one was Love Around the Corner.
Love Around the
My most
Corner. So
recent
there you
one,
go.
which released a year ago this week.
So Love Around the Corner is going to become the next Hollywood hit, Taylor Lautner to star. And we're talking about those big companies, then they should pay you for their work if they want to use your story. What about a school play? Because I was mentioning this to my wife, and she's putting on stuff about, she's saying what a nightmare it is putting on productions, because not only do you have to get individual permissions just for the kids to sing a song, but also you can't print stuff off, and if you can, then you have to pay multiple times for. Is there room for kind of tiers where we say, well, educators can use it?
If it's something originally you're putting together, yeah, it's complicated because you're using other people's works and songs. If it's a piece like most shows put together at some point a package for school rentals that's that's a little they do want to, but they are willing to work with schools, but they want to they don't want to just let their work go out there into the world for just anyone.
So Grant Dunn has jumped into the chat room. There's a live chat, by the way, Amanda. They're all saying hello. They're very excited to meet you. So would this person open up their home after 30 years for the benefit of the homeless?
Exactly. This is no one talks about physical property the same way they talk about intellectual property. Like after 30 years, somebody can say you've owned your house long enough, you have to move out of it and let somebody else have a shot at it. We don't think about property that way.
What about patents for like inventing, I don't know, the alarm clock?
I don't know how those work. I should say I'm not a lawyer and I don't know anything about law, so I don't know anything about patents. I think you have to renew a patent regularly, and there is some argument to say maybe the copyright could be shortened a little bit, the length of your life, and if at that point you could renew it for another 20 years if you pay. I don't know. There's maybe some argument to that.
Matthew,
but just randomly letting it expire while I'm still alive, no.
So for business purposes, things like trademarks, you have to aggressively pursue defending them if other people bogart them from you. But I think for patents, it's usually the patent is for X years. And we see this especially with pharmaceutical companies. They'll have a patent for so many years, and then it passes into the public domain. Now, to be fair, a lot of stuff pharmaceutical companies develop is also funded by government money. So the length of that patent is different to the length of intellectual property copyright, like on a novel or a script or something like that, for the very reason that it was funded by public money. So after a certain period of time, anyone can make that thing. But usually what they'll do is they'll make a change to it so that they can then get a new patent and sell it as a newer generation thing. So there are still ways around it. And it's not that there's no argument at all for popular characters eventually being available for transformational use. It's like, why in the lifetime of the author would you take that property away from them and just say, oh, that's a good thing for everybody? And because there's not really a great argument for it that I have yet seen.
So apparently patents
what are the chances anyone's they all say that what are the chances anyone's still making money off of a book 30 years after it's been published? And I'm just going to point out that Bridgerton, the original novel that was just the first book that was just adapted into a record-breaking Netflix series, was written not quite 30 years ago, but close. She wrote it in like 92, 93. It's pretty old. It's been or Margaret Atwood, The Handmaid's Tale, was written in the 80s, and it's being adapted right now on Hulu.
Can we talk about
Margaret Atwood is
can
rightly
we
getting
talk
money for that.
can we talk about Bridgerton for just a second since you mentioned it? Because I
Yes,
don't think we brought it up. Like I hate that kind of stuff, and that was really good. And
it
like
was good.
I enjoy it. Like it was like Hollyoaks in the olden days. You won't know the reference of Hollyoaks,
I
but it was like a little soap opera, wasn't it? But from
It
the
was
olden
fantastic.
days, the character acting was fantastic, and I just loved how they unapologetically brought modern stuff
Yep.
into that era, and they just made it as a
That's a whole
story.
other podcast I could do, but
No, but it was so cool. Like, just to like, because normally they use the excuse of, oh, well, there wasn't brown and black people in the olden days, so we could
oh
only
yes, there
hire
were.
white actors. It's like, oh, how convenient, a historical caveat that lets you just openly discriminate against black actors. No, no, we're done with that. We don't need to do that. So to just have like the Duke of whatever it was, the Duke of
Hastings.
Bristol, where was he? Hastings
Duke of
just
Hastings.
happened to be a black family. I just was like, oh, brilliant. But they did it with everything. They did it with music as well. So as you walked
Yeah.
in, they were using old instruments, and it was in the setting of olden days. But then it was like I don't know, it was a 50 Cent
It's
song or
Maroon
something.
5.
Yeah, something like that. It's so good. I loved it.
It was
Sorry,
fantastic.
Matt, you interrupted you.
We were gushing about Bridgerton.
Uh, no, the only caveat I would say is that historically speaking, there always were people of color all throughout Europe and the Americas. So anyone making that argument is simply making it from a place of ignorance, whether on purpose or genuine is up to, I guess, you to determine based on the conversation.
I get this feeling sometimes when people defend that it's a way of kind of almost normalizing how bad stuff was back there. So it's like, well, black people were only slaves and servants in that period, and women had very little power. So if we just keep telling those stories and repeating those stories like that, we're keeping the status quo like that, and it's almost like an excuse to keep normalizing it.
Gatekeeping.
Gatekeeping. Oh my goodness. Oh, I loved your gatekeeping tweet that you did a while back. We could go off on one on that, but we won't. We'll stick
Not today.
to
That's a
the
different.
script. I had an ex-girlfriend whose job was to rip off designer clothes. So this is where like copyright and kind of intellectual morality clash with intellectual copyright law. This was her job. She worked for a big chain supermarket as a designer, and she would get things that were selling well from Louis Vuitton or whatever, like a pair of jeans, and then she would sit there on her CAD, and she had a remit to make 5 significant changes. So there's 2 stitches on the back pocket on the top. Okay, we make that 3 now. There's 4 buttons on the collar, make that 5. And she just had to make enough significant changes to not get sued, but it would still be recognizable. How do writers protect against that? Because I'm imagining it wouldn't be so hard to take the essence of what is good about your story, but change enough details to not get sued.
That's actually happens all the time. I mean, especially in genre fiction, there aren't, it's not like every book is completely original in its theme or in its basic plot. I mean, there's 1,000 books out there with a duke who falls in love with, that's not,
Mm.
somebody's always going to have an idea that's kind of similar to yours. There's only so many ideas out there. It's all in execution and how you do it. I mean, you have an idea. This series is about 3 sisters who, inherit a bar in Brooklyn. Somebody's probably written something similar to that, but and that's fine. It's just my actual words, like how I put the story together, the characters
Yeah.
I create, the prose that I write. That's mine.
Yeah, so
The dialogue.
dialogue, yeah. So does that extend to? So let's say this guy gets his way, and after 30 years, that's not your book anymore somehow. So what can he do? Can he just start printing copies of it? Is that what he's
Here's the
suggesting?
thing: nobody wins in this case. Like in 30 years, it just means that my publisher could print it and keep selling it and just not have to pay
And just
me
not have to pay.
and keep more of the money. That's how that would actually work in practice.
I don't know, Matt. I tell you what, I'm struggling to get my head around that, because you can so easily just compare it to anything else and it can break down. I don't know. It feels like it's just a sense of entitlement. It's like, hey, why can't
It's
your thing
entitlement.
be?
I want your thing.
Yeah, I want
Yeah.
your thing. Is it as simple as that,
For
Matt?
free.
For free.
I want your thing for free. But that's
And
a
honestly, like I said, you dig down deep enough, and it's just they want to, why I really want to write a book that's set at Hogwarts, but I can't because J.K. Rowling owns it. I'm like, well, yeah, she does. I know that was a great idea, but you can't have it just because you want it. And also, I'll point out, as someone mentioned in the chat, you can write a book set at Hogwarts, and you just have to, it's fan fiction, and you can publish it even and put it out there and have people read it. You just can't make money off of it. That's the difference.
Ah, okay. Well, that's interesting, and that probably explains why creators, they don't go for the throat when it's apart from like Disney and stuff. They don't go for the throat if my wife does a choir and they happen to sing the hippie hippie shake or sing
Yeah.
happy birthday, but they would go after you if you made that for a commercial
Try to
TV
make money
station.
off of it. If you monetize it, suddenly it's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. That sense of entitlement is very strange. But why, in general, do creative works just not carry the same weight? Do we think as like a business portfolio or a pension fund or something like that? And I've never really understood why it's valued so little. What they don't see is they don't see the hours that you've put into it, and that is
This
not.
book,
Yeah.
I started writing this book in the fall of 2016. It was published in March of 2019. 3 years of work and hundreds of hours. I can't even tell you. I mean, that's a bigger conversation about the devaluing of the arts altogether. Like, everybody, especially, and it's worse even now that we have the internet, that everyone expects everything to be free. All content should be, they know they can find it for free, so they get pissed off when they have to pay for it.
Yeah, go on. Tell them about how many sites
Oh
you've
my
sent
God.
notices to, finding your
Piracy.
entire
I mean,
books,
I
your
can't even,
entire
I can't
over,
even,
not just this series, everything you've ever written on sites where anyone can download it for $0
Yeah.
constantly,
constantly.
a
It's
couple of
like
times a week.
whack-a-mole.
No
Yeah, you just can't.
way.
You get one taken down and another 3 pop up. It's endless. But like, I can't even. But like, no sooner do they get formatted for ebook that it's been pirated someplace and it's for free online. It's constant.
That's an interesting topic about everyone's expecting stuff for free.
Everything.
So we had a bit of an accident with our YouTube video, your tech time video. So for some reason, it had some extra ad markers stuck in it. But like, okay,
Yeah.
it was
So
like
that just
10.
means I make more money, right?
Yeah,
We
sure.
make more money.
Yeah. Look. I'll just write down a number here. Can you zoom that? Can you read that? No, okay, too late. Anyway, yeah, there was 10 markers. 10 markers
Oh my
got put on.
gosh.
So it
I
was a
feel
bit.
sorry for anyone who watched it.
So it was a bit much, and it was a bit intrusive. But I don't see the outrage. It's like, sorry, we didn't mean to do that. But we do have to put adverts in front of stuff. We do have costs, and actually, it's a product that you value enough to tune into and subscribe to. But they absolutely expect that for free. And a lot of the times, when you do things like, say, support us on Patreon, people get upset. But the argument is, how come you're willing to give Netflix $8.99 a month and you watch them an hour a day? But then when it comes to podcasts and YouTube, you definitely expect it for free. There's a strange mentality that's almost like, we will pay rich people, but we won't pay ordinary working freelancers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they are fine paying Disney, but they don't want to pay me, and they always forget. There's also this misconception that everyone who's a creative person is somehow like that. We're all like, because it's a little bit of a privileged concept. Like you get to do something fun for your
Yes.
day, for your job. So why do you need money on top of it? They also have this huge misconception about how much creatives make off of their work, and it's different for everybody. Obviously, it's a huge span. I would say most authors, 99.5%, are not making a solid living from the work, from the writing, or
And
not even if they're living enough not to have a day job, they're not making a lot. I mean, like there are, Stephen King, J.K. Rowling. There's like
a
5
few.
authors who've gotten rich.
Well, I
writing.
mean,
It
if
just
you want to
doesn't
look
happen.
at me as a content creator and a presenter, what people don't think about is the percentage of time doing the fun bit. So like this is the fun bit because I get to speak to you guys or going on air. For every fun minute, there's 5 or 6 minutes in the background doing admin, cutting things up, doing editing, doing show
Writing
notes,
show notes.
doing prep, doing all that stuff. And there was almost a mentality here when they were doing like relief payments or furlough. We had furlough here where people getting sent home on 80% pay, but self-employed creatives got like nothing. Like they talked about the forgotten 3 million in the UK who got no support. My wife lost virtually all her income and didn't get any support because it's almost like it's a punishment. You only get help if your job sucks. If you enjoy your job in any way, screw you. You had it come in somehow.
Yeah, you're fortunate enough to be able to do something fun for a living, so we're not going to feel bad for you. Like, well, I don't do something fun for a living. I do a job. Well, I had a job that I went to every day and I actually worked hard.
Yeah.
Like We all do. Everything. And this is, I mean, Matt knows, he lives with a writer, how much I bitch about it. I mean, yes, it's fun, but like a whole lot of it is just sitting down at the table and making yourself do the work, even when you don't feel in the mood, or, writing the hard bits, or, your editor comes back and says, I love this whole passage that takes 3 pages. You get a paragraph to, so you have to figure out how to squeeze the same. I mean, it's work. It's a lot of work. And then the marketing afterwards and trying to constantly, and then chasing down, piracy. It's even the fun jobs have a not inconsiderable amount of drudgery involved in them too.
Amanda, you and I have something in common. We both live with and are married to musicians, so we can console each other here. It's rubbish, isn't it? They're terrible people.
The constant practice.
In my house, I can't. If I start singing, she will not only sing along with me, but she'll like harmonize, or she'll do what I'm singing, but much, much better. Or here's the most heinous crime. She will hear that I'm singing a song, go, oh, that's a nice song. And she'll start singing it from the beginning, just like completely disregarding what I'm doing. Yeah, musicians are just awful, awful people. Oh my God, you've got trumpet practice in your house. How annoying must that be?
Loud.
Yeah. Even with the little cup thing on, it's loud. Yeah. It's terrible.
Always loud.
Before we get out of here, guys, I would like to bug you about one thing, Amanda, because Matt kept suggesting that you might be doing a motorsport related book.
I have written 2 motorsport. I've written 2 books.
Well, where are they?
I couldn't sell them. I shopped them around. Couldn't get a publisher to bite.
Oh,
so
no.
they're sitting on my laptop.
But they're fully like written and ready to go, publisher ready. Would it help if I could send them to a UK publisher that I collaborate with some stuff on, couldn't I?
Yeah, tell them I've written a Formula One romance.
Oh, that'd be good. We'd get some.
Second one features the first Formula One female driver.
Well, it would be the second, wouldn't it?
Well, there wasn't when I wrote it. There wasn't one yet. So.
Oh no, there was one in like 19.
Current one. We're not talking historically. We're not considering. We're talking about the current era.
You know, it's coming. There will be a woman in Formula One within the decade, because those kind of grassroots things where you put in places where you go, right, you need a role model because you can't be what you can't see, and it feels forever as if that's not working, and then all of a sudden it does. Just unfortunate that you have to do a lot of work with no results for a long time. But if it's worth it, it's worth it, because motorsport will improve. We're leaving 50% of the population on the table and allowing Lance Stroll to drive around being all Lance Strolly. I won't go on that rant anymore.
Are you sure? Are you sure you don't want to?
I kind of want to. Don't set me off. No, don't trigger me. Don't set me off. It's been wonderful to have you on the show, Amanda. Let's make sure we give you a proper plug, and we'll put your links to stuff in the show notes. Do you have a publisher?
Plug. This one, oh no, not that one.
That's the same one.
This one's on sale this week. It's $1.99 everywhere in the US. I don't know if that's true in the UK, but you could look.
Wow, for the physical papery.
No, they're not. They're ebook only. These are just for promotional copies. The book is to purchase. It's only an ebook.
I'm sure Matt can get those show notes to me. So look in the show notes. You'll find links to that. It is A Weaver Writes on Twitter. Matt, no one wants to follow Matt anymore. We've got the best trumpets now.
I'm now boring.
Yeah, I'm much more entertaining on Twitter than he is.
It's true.
Oh my God! But you're both kind of like. You're both pretty outspoken on Twitter, by the way. Like, I see I've had to turn Matt's retweets off like quite a while ago, but I still have like yours on there. But it takes me down topics and avenues that I didn't even know. A, I didn't know those topics existed. B, I'm instantly angry about them. So that's good. So when I'm doom scrolling, A Weaver Writes helps me out massively. So follow Matt at MattPT55. We'll do the links to Amanda's books as well. Thanks for joining us here on the Remain Indoors podcast. Sorry that we are going to have to take this hiatus, but I hope you understand that we are trying to do some really, really cool stuff over at Missed Apex Podcast. We've also got a team of writers joining us, and although I'm not being hands-on at all, because I'm hoping Matt will do the hard yards there, that's going to take some overseeing and some admin and stuff like that, Matt.
Not that I want to flog our very first story on the exciting realm of Formula One in shipping, but we could have an article out on that with quotes from DHL, and we're waiting to hear back from the teams even as we speak. So we're not talking, a team of writers we're talking a team of like actual people who write and are actual journalists, and we'll be doing real stories about things. And I believe we've got wall-to-wall testing coverage on the site written as well.
That will be very exciting. But look, when this is being pitched to me, do you want to take this team on? Yeah, it'll be great. We'll cover this. We'll have this content. Very first story, shipping container logistics. Yeah, thanks, Matt. Absolutely fantastic.
Well, I don't see anybody else writing about it, and I still argue a tripling of shipping costs and extra weeks to get things to where they belong is not an insignificant thing in this budget climate.
It's almost like you and me are very different people, but we will be back. Don't unsubscribe to us. We have a date with you in late April. Believe me, I need this as much as you do. I really, really wish you the best of luck getting your vaccines. Stay safe just for a little while longer. The light is at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully when we see you next, everyone will be all jabbed up and ready to go. Until then, work hard, be kind, and have fun, and remain indoors. I'm going to edit it so it sounds like I went all the way to the end of this bit where it goes.
Yeah.
Duh, duh, duh.
Amateur.
You can't nail it every